Hello YouTube. This video is to explain how I built my homemade radius cutting tool for the lathe. What I needed this tool for was to build tubing roller dies for a tubing roller, which once I make the video for the tubing roller, I will include that in the description of this video in case you're interested. But I needed to make tubing roller dies like this one here. This is a 1-inch outer diameter round tubing roller die. It's been sitting around getting a little bit rusty, and I didn't want to take the time to take it off the shaft and all the bearings, but you get the idea. So to make that, I built this tool. It is relatively simple. So we start out down on this here. That is just a simple piece of 1/2-inch key stock, so 1/2-inch square stock, and it was relatively inexpensive at the farm store for a little piece of that. And then that comes over to right here. This is just kind of a hinge mechanism, an axis for the cutting tool to turn on. So I just turned on the lathe a little piece of solid round and a hole that worked with the rest of my design, and welded that to a little connecting piece and welded that up to my 1/2-inch square stock. The way my lathe is set up, I just tighten this piece here into a quick change tool post. This is a tool I don't use very often, and I haven't bought a dedicated quick change for it. I probably should, but I haven't got that yet. So I think I have a boring bar or something on the one I used for this right now. So then the next step is making the piece with the cutter, and there's a little bit more to that. So the cutter, this right here, that's very simple. I purchased the 1/4-inch carbide insert cutters that you can buy from Harbor Freight. I think it's like $25, and you get 5 of them with different angles. And I built a slot that accepts that, and that thing is welded to the top of a 1/2-inch bolt. And I'm going to turn this so you can see it from the front. So I flattened out the top of that bolt, and then I made a piece here. I don't own a mill, so I had to do this with grinders and a lathe. So basically I spun a piece from right here to right here in the lathe, center drilled it, and actually this top section here is also got threads, which I will explain later. So there's a hole going through that section right where my finger is. There's a hole through that, and it is threaded for, I think it was a 3/8 bolt. And that is how this cutter is tightened into that slot. Now this lower bolt, which I've shaved flat, goes down into our little hinging piece. This is built so that the unthreaded portion of the bolt sits inside here, and with this nut tight, it still allows this to free spin. Now, this nylock nut, normally when it's in operation, I will have this tightened up, and I'll jam these two so that it does not come loose. But right now I just have it loose, because I will probably disassemble that portion later in the video just to give you a better view of the parts. So I've explained from here down the cutter. Now this top section is simply just 1/2 inch pipe, 1/2 inch carbon steel schedule pipe. I think it was schedule 40. It's not real critical what schedule it is. It needs to be enough room for you to feed a bolt. This is a very long bolt, and it goes all the way from up here down, and the threads go inside this section here, and that is what tightens in the cutter. So a compression tightening system for that little 1/4 inch cutter, and it's all encapsulated inside of this 1/2 inch pipe shaft. Alright, so I'll give you a view of the top. You can see there I just welded a washer to the top. Kind of helps keep it all aligned, centered for this long bolt to go through there. And that is how we tighten the cutter. If you want to adjust it to cut a different size radius, this is what you would use to tighten the cutter. So it's tedious, but it does work. And it was very inexpensive to build this. I think I built it for, well, if you include all 5 of the cutting tools, it probably cost me about $40 to build this. You could build it cheaper if you took some time and really figured it out. Now, the reason this piece of 1/2 inch pipe is long is simple. I was just afraid of the possibility of operating this, potentially catching my hand on moving parts. So I made this long pipe. So when I'm turning this lever, this is how you cut the radius. You grab this, spin that, and it moves the cutting tool on your workpiece where you're cutting the radius. The way I built mine, this is an old wrench I found when I was a kid walking along the railroad tracks, and I'd had this thing for probably 30 some years, just sitting around. I said, you know what, I should actually use that, and it looks kind of neat. I just TIG welded that thing on. It looks like there's a wrench that is just turning this round piece of pipe, even though it's the wrong shape for grabbing with this style wrench. But you could use anything. You could just stick a piece of pipe or a piece of round bar or something on there. That was just something I did for amusement, using that wrench, and it does kind of roll through your hand nicely the way the back side of this wrench is, almost like a natural knob. Alright, so let's see if I can do a kind of a view here so you can get a pretty good idea how this would have been cutting. Well, if you look down there, you see the cutting tool, and I'm turning the wrench. Now you see the 1/2 inch piece of square stock rotating. Normally that would be fixed into the quick change tool post, so that wouldn't move, but I only got so many hands, so I can't do it all for the video. Unfortunately, I don't have a staff. So yeah, and then your finished piece like this, I only took out probably 5 or 10 thou at a time, so it is very slow going. I bet you it took me, I don't know, 20 minutes to cut this, not counting the 1 inch shaft hole in the middle. So now I'm going to disassemble the bottom and give you a better view of it. It's a very simple design. I have not had any issues. It's probably not the safest thing. I'm going to set the phone down for just a second here to get this loose. Alright, so now I have it taken apart. You see the nuts, pretty self-explanatory. There you see the bolt that I welded on. That forms the hinge point. And there's your cutter. So you see this portion. And here, this is what it all spins on here. This is the top view. There you see little score marks from being in the quick change tool holder. And you can see how this is just welded together, a bunch of random pieces. If you got a mill, you could probably even make a nicer looking version of this, but I don't own a mill at the time, this anyways. So this section here was the hardest part. I did not see a lot of videos on YouTube that explain how anyone built theirs, so I wanted to make my video to help anyone else. I am not giving you engineering advice or safety advice. So build this at your own risk. These are just here to give you ideas, show you what worked for me. Alright, thanks for watching.